What's up, everybody? Brett here. We're back today playing some more Total War Warhammer 2. It's an online replay. It's going to be me versus Friendly Potato. Guys, I played 2 games in a row against Friendly Potato. Very friendly, first off. Definitely not a potato. Dude was very good. And to his credit, I actually lost the first game against him. I was trying out a different style Tomb King build against his greenskins. And he did a great job of shutting me down. So when we got matched up again, I was like, oh lord, here we go. We're about to have another fierce battle. But he took the dwarves, and I was like, you know what? Time to repay the favor with my own greenskin build, which is, I think, a bit unorthodox, but makes a lot of sense whenever I break it down for you. So we're on this map. It's got some open field, right, if dwarves want to play the artillery game, but also it's got this area here where if they want to go without any ranged capability, they can kind of hide in the forest and weather a storm if that's something that they have to do. Dwarves, notoriously slow, very bad at running across the entire map to engage an enemy. So an entire melee focused build is going to be hard for them if the enemy brings anything whatsoever that can kind of skirmish them out. Luckily for them though, playing the greenskins, didn't really decide to bring a skirmish heavy build. I do like to do that though. This time I opted not to because my Tomb King build in the previous game was also very skirmisher heavy. So I decided to change it up just a little bit. So for our dwarf opponent, he's got some miners with blasting charges out front. Looks like just 2 groups of those. Some dwarf warriors here kind of making up the meat and potatoes of the army, just kind of padding those numbers. But then long beards with great weapons. An excellent choice, really. I think they're also chevroned up. Yeah, 9. Wow, rank 9 long beards with great weapons. Their stats are pretty ridiculous, actually. They're going to provide that encouragement aura. They're immune to psychology. And I don't know how well long beards with great weapons do against, let's say, like black orcs, probably their primary targets. I will say this though, I didn't really go that deep with black orcs. I brought 2 groups here in the center to kind of hold it down with our boy Grimgor, with some regular orc boys out on the flanks. But I brought a lot of cheap armor piercing. That was kind of the name of my game. And then in the center here, he's got a core, he's got slayers. He also has giant slayers with their big old axes. Zoom in on these bad boys. But yeah, that's pretty much it. What you see is what you get. Thorgrim here, being accompanied by a runesmith. Kind of a nice 1-2 punch. Rune of Wrath and Rune to slow stuff down. And I think that's Rune of Negation if we can kind of hover over him real quick. Yeah, so for 22% damage resistance, that's a must-have. And then Thorgrim here with Stand Your Ground. The High King himself. One of my favorite characters in all of the lore. But then also the Iron Drakes holding up the center. It's going to be very tough for me to shut these guys down throughout the course of this game. Friendly Potato does a great job of keeping them out of harm's way and sitting in this death box and just allowing them to do work. Iron Drakes are a cool unit. Alright, so my build, right? I was expecting Dwarven Artillery, I was expecting Dwarven Range. I had Vanguard deployments on either side, 2 matching groups. I've got my Goblin Wolf Riders here, paired with the Forest Goblin Spider Riders. So they're there to attach poison. The Goblin Wolf Riders are fast. They can pretty much catch whatever. We're fighting dwarves, so that's not as relevant. The big thing is they're cheap. And in high numbers, they allow me to pretty much dictate where I'm going to fight. So, guys, I've got the mobility advantage, right? I've got 4 groups of cav here. I've got 2 groups of cav here. These are the Night Goblin Squig Hoppers. Heavy on the armor piercing. They also apply poison. Armor piercing is really what I'm looking for here. So I definitely have the mobility advantage. What else? What other advantages do I have? I have the ranged advantage. I've got the Hammer of Gork here. It's just started to fire as they've come out of the forest. And it is the Regiment of Renown, Goblin Rocklobber. And that is going to be doing good work for me as well. So they have to come to me. If I didn't have this, they could sit in the forest and force us into a forest engagement. Or they can just sit here and take, 20 more rounds of the Hammer of Gork and hate their lives. So we're going to start getting a few kills. We're going to start accumulating some kills on that. I also have, like I mentioned, my Orc Boys and Black Orcs. They're going to be kind of the center of my formation. But I'm supporting them with Squig Herds. Very cheap and also heavy on the armor piercing. They rampage. Let's also just kind of look at their ability because they have a kind of a unique tooltip. They have plus 12 leadership whenever there is an enemy present. So if you kind of snipe them out before they get to your front lines, they can rout. But they will rampage. Yeah. So they'll attack the closest thing to them. Not a big deal. I want them to basically attack everything they can. And then the last and sneakiest part of my build is going to be the nasty skulkers, who at the moment, look how close they are. They're still hidden. So the dwarf player has no idea that I've got 4 groups of nasty skulkers kind of walking right up to him. And we're going to take our time. We have the range advantage, the mobility advantage. He has to come to us, and we're going to use that to get a complete surround off before we seek to engage. And then Grimgor. Grimgor is here against the dwarves. If I had to, I would hide him against any type of artillery sniping. But just in a 1v1 versus almost anything dwarven, he will win. He doesn't have gits, so I don't exactly want him to be dueling. I just want him to survive. I want him to use the WAAGHH whenever it's appropriate and to pop stand your ground. That's really it. He's cheap. He's a very cheap choice for someone who can basically beat the brakes off of almost any dwarf lord. I think Ungrim probably gives him a run for his money, especially when he has his buffs. And I don't have gits. However, you'll notice a big thing. I don't have a caster. That's something I've done a little bit lately, simply because whenever I fight the dwarves, I recognize they have an innate magic resistance. They also often don't have, what's a good way to say it? They're not especially vulnerable to a lot of the tricks that the greenskins will attempt to do. Like let's say you want to do lord sniping with WAAGHH, right? You're going to have to spam a heck of a lot of spirit leeches, right, to get those kills. Or if you want to use like your WAAGHH, Goblin Shaman combos with your magic missiles. The thing about dwarves is they're low to the ground. A lot of times terrain will block the magic missiles. If you're fighting someone like Cetra, right, on a Khmrian War Sphinx, he's the easiest target in the world, and by all means spam away. But the dwarf lords, highly magic resistant, and that's generally just not a good idea. So without any further ado, guys, you can see the noose is currently tightening. I'm bringing in those deep reserve guys whose job was going to be to jump on artillery, perhaps, if it was left abandoned. But let's go ahead and rock it. I'm not going to prematurely engage. I mean, they need to come to me. No doubt he wants to get his miners within range. He wants to get those iron drakes in range. And at this point, the nasty skulkers are going to start popping out. And he's going to realize the kind of the depth of his situation right here. Black Orcs, they're not going to take much damage from the miners with blasting charges. If these were, I mean, they'll take a little bit. The iron drakes are hitting them. But yeah, WAAGHH is being popped. Big buffs going on. And I'm going to send Grimgor just into the nearest fight. I'm not that concerned with what his targets are. I'm going to inundate my cheaper units, like these Orc boys, with squigs, letting them do the damage. But these iron drakes, man, they are brutal. And I'm trying to get something on everything, but he's doing a good job of screening me out, right? Longbeards with great weapons are going to do just fine versus squigs. But once they're supported by all this cav, and I'm circling in, the best thing I can do right now is try and get my nasty skulkers onto these slayers, but great use of Rune of Wrath and Ruin, lowering my speed, making it so that I'm just going to completely miss, and then he's going to pull his slayers in behind and trap 3 units of large, and he's just going to be able to go to town with those slayers. But I'm going to try to get the nasty skulkers and the wolf riders in, and we want to blob them up here while I win at basically every other flank. So squigs are going in, they're rampaging. We're happy to see that. Dwarf warriors are going to get torn to pieces. It might take a minute to wear down the Longbeards just because they're so defensively focused. Black Orcs are going to bounce from target to target. I see a good opportunity here to have my Black Orcs fight both Slayers and to tie down the Iron Drakes, but he's going to be very on top of his micro here, is the Friendly Potato, and he's going to be moving them around. The Miners were crushed. The Dwarf Warriors are basically crushed on the opening charge. This is the pocket where we have to be a little bit worried. And as I see him trying to move around and reposition, I'm going to occasionally pop the Nasty Skulker's ability, which is a smoke bomb that lowers speed, essentially. It's what it's mostly used for. I'm going to try and look for openings. I don't need to engage with every single unit all at once, right? I'm going to have guys that are going to get hurt and rout, like these Nasty Skulkers, like these Squid Herds. And it's going to be up to me to be very on top of bringing them back to the battle. Because if I don't do that efficiently, like even these Goblin Wolf Riders, right? If I don't do that efficiently, I'm going to be in trouble because the quality of the Dwarven troops is just going to win out if I don't have the numbers on my side. So these Slayers are very much engaged, both groups here. Slayers versus Black Orcs is a great trade for me. Nasty Skulkers going in, Smoke Bomb being popped. God, I'm just trying to get on these Iron Drakes. It's so hard, and I haven't been able to do it yet. The Slayers, of course, are unbreakable. They're going to make an awesome line that I'm just not going to be able to smash through. Okay, it looks like he's trying to headbutt that Black Orc. Get him. and the fire is just blasting straight through. If they've got to hit someone, I'm glad they're going for the Black Orcs. Not the best armor piercing on the Iron Drakes flame weapons, and it has a lowering of the leadership type effect. And if you're going to do that to anybody, do it to the Black Orcs, who don't really care. They have good enough leadership that they can stand and fight regardless. The squigs are going to rampage back in. I've managed to completely overwhelm this flank. All of my routing, weaker cav has returned. My nasty skulkers are going to try and choose better targets. I've got a nice sandwich here. These Longbeards and Dwarf Warriors are going to fight back-to-back against the nasty skulkers. I've got Orc Boys and Forest Goblin Riders. So they're being poisoned. That's probably the best thing going on here. Just lowering their combat stats. Orc Boys tearing them up. Hell yeah. Still Iron Drakes online until the Squig Herd rampage, thankfully, right into them. And they're going to start losing models at some point. Their leadership on my Squig Herd, no, and then they break. That's alright though. Black Orcs in here, all they need to do is tie these guys down. Because while they're fighting, Grimgor is earning lots of value, up to 40 kills. Not bad for a Foot Lord. Especially considering he's just fighting lots of other armor-piercing armored infantry. I mean, that's kind of exactly what I want him to do. And almost every time he swings, he's going to get a kill. So he's on the right target, that's for sure. I figured let's get some Black Orcs in there with him. This makes a pretty scary combo that I don't think Thorgrim and his Runesmith are going to want to come in here and try to take out. We've managed to isolate the Runesmith, who's been doing good work this entire battle. Isolating him, stand your ground is popped, so his melee defense is going to be a bit higher. But Squig Herds will tear into him pretty easily. And I just kind of want to feed units into this at a slower pace. And my WAAGHH has been able to be popped again. This battle's been dragging on for a second here. And that's going to give me some great stats. So speed, charge bonus, melee attack being the primary thing. Just allowing us kind of to get past the really high melee defense of like Thorgrim. Look at him, man. At 62, and that's without stand your ground popped. That's huge. And just like that, it's looking pretty green. The entire map's looking pretty green. The Hammer of Gork has gotten a few kills. Probably has done some friendly fire damage, if I'm being honest. I'm using a lot of my cheaper cavalry this battle to chase down routing dwarf units. The last thing I want is for Longbeards to come back, Dwarf Warriors to come back. Night Goblin Squig Hoppers have done a good job this battle as well. We'll look at the kills after this. But I've got Thorgrim completely surrounded. I've got him with all the armor piercing I could possibly need, but he's a tough guy and his leadership is so powerful. You're going to need someone like Grimgor to come in. Oath of Vengeance popped. I didn't see that at the time, but it makes sense. Going to lower my melee defense. But this is not a fair duel, and that's going to be it. Great battle from Friendly Potato. Probably was not expecting this build. I think he said something in the chat like, oh lord, them squigs coming. There was a lot of squigs. Squigs, guys. Whenever squigs were first introduced into the game, there was one of the most broken builds I've ever seen in Total War, where you would just bring basically an entire army of squigs. And of course, that's not something anyone should do now. But against the dwarves, there was literally nothing you could do. You could just bring all squigs, run over them, and they would just die. I don't think there was any counter build to it whatsoever. Maybe all Slayers? Maybe all Slayers could do it. But once Rampage is added, there's no way. Anyway, great game. Thank you, Friendly Potato, for the awesome game. No doubt was not really expecting this build. It had a lot of elements to it that would have been useful had he brought different builds, right? The Vanguard deployment would have been good versus artillery. I was hoping the Nasty Skulkers could get close enough to avoid a lot of ranged fire. I was expecting Rangers. I was expecting lots of miners with blasting charges. So I was hoping the squigs would get in there, eat the charges, let the follow-up with the Black Orcs would be hard and heavy. My cheap cav would get in, swarm. You know, it was more of a swarm build. Once again, not taking magic, allowing me to go very wide, which I think was ultimately just the downfall of this dwarf beard. Because dwarf beard, yeah, dwarf build. They are very resilient people, and I was just able to make it so that the Dwarf Warriors didn't pay for themselves, the Miners didn't pay for themselves, and the Runesmith probably did. But great micro from Friendly Potato. Like I said, in the previous game, he had great micro as well, so good player, and I appreciate the game. Guys, if you're interested in sending me replays, I have a Discord channel where you can do it in the Total War replay section. I like to look at them every now and then and get a game up. I'll hopefully get some submissions. And I've seen some news on the Reddit people are talking about a Chaos Beastmen themed update coming, which it's like in the Steam databanks. I'm super excited about that. Might make a video on that soon if we get a little bit more concrete information. But regardless, guys, have a good day. I'm Brett. My channel is Goodtalk Gaming. And as always, y'all, I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys.